They burn these individuals in a 55-gallon drum using diesel because diesel burns slower.
They've had people's heads thrown into a disco. When you have plastic bags on the backdrop, you know something's going to happen. You know that they don't want to stain something.
They've put them in acid and watched their bodies deteriorate. They have fed them to wild animals.
The name is Los Zetas, a group of organized criminals who have redefined the word terror. Bred and trained in Mexico, this cartel is notorious for spine-chilling brutality that will shake anyone to their core. Smuggling narcotics, capturing territories, and terrorizing the locals, Los Zetas has done it all. But the tales of their inhuman brutality while taking the lives of innocents sets them apart from the other cartels. In this video, we will dive into the history of the infamous torture houses of this cartel, where they inflict the worst kind of pain on their victims and wipe their existence from the face of the earth. Come join us in this chilling horror tale, where we uncover what truly goes on inside Los Zetas' brutal torture chambers. So who are Los Zetas, and how did they come to power? The birth of Los Zetas dates back to the 1990s. They have been one of the most organized cartels due to their professional training. Surprising as it may sound, this cartel started out in the military and had taken the oath to fight against drug cartels. However, after being trained by the Mexican and US militaries, some of them dropped out and took off to join the Gulf cartel in exchange for the huge sum of money offered to them. A portion of the Gulf cartel integrated later on, and Los Zetas was born.
What you saw was a change in the way drug cartels fought with violence. It was no longer those gang members with shaved heads and tattoos fighting with pistols and knives. It was militarized style, fighting like military units. And once they did it, this was spread across to every cartel in Mexico.
They are one of the cartels that started to show inhumanity through their various acts of terror, which inspired other cartels to step up their levels of brutality. The late George Grayson was a professor at the College of William and Mary and has studied the cartel closely. He said, Los Zetas spearheaded the brutality among all the other cartels. Sadism was their brand. Even the Sinaloas are now decapitating people. You have to keep up with the Joneses. You have to have cartel cred, being known as the meanest, most savage criminal organization in the Americas. And their activities weren't solely restricted to narcotics trafficking. They acted more like a deranged military, taking over Mexican territories one by one. They weren't anything like the other cartels, and their inhumanity also differentiated them from the other cartels.
They'd also take over the local drug selling, shaking down, kidnapping, stealing cars, selling pirated goods. They started taking over corrupt trade unions. So it wasn't just a fight about the drug trade of the United States. It was a fight about controlling every inch of territory and all of the businesses in this territory.
So how and why were the torture kitchens created? The Mexican government declared war against cartels in 2006, setting the violence in motion. It's estimated that the lives of around 200,000 people have been brutally taken since then, and 30,000 more are missing. If the number is making your head spin, the cruel tales of torture by the gang will make you lose your faith in humanity. Los Zetas had many operational zones strewn across the country. It's reported that they had 12 cells or houses where they took the victims for interrogating, terrorizing, or simply to take their lives. Law enforcement first learned about one of these kitchens when an ex-police officer and Los Zetas boss named Karim was arrested in August 2011. He provided intel about 2 kitchens in Poza Rica, which were very close to the La Gallera Ranch, another hub for torturing people. Another ranch was in San Fernando, used for the same purpose. It also had a huge outdoor oven, like the one in La Gallera, which was reportedly used to burn corpses. Multiple other ranches and kitchens have been discovered since, all with the remains of victims sticking out from piles of ash. So what went on inside these houses? The most common and brutal technique used by the cartel leaders was turning their victims into stew. Yes, you heard correctly. The El Guiso, or stew technique, ensured a slow and painful death for the victims of Los Zetas. Even though the cartel had been using all sorts of brutal methods to torture their victims at this point, this method was made more popular among their men under the reign of Miguel Ángel Trevino Morales, also known as Z40. Cartel members poured concentrated sulfuric acid and water in large barrels to the point where the liquid began to boil and bubble. After the liquid was ready, victims were dumped into it while they were still alive and breathing.
The way that he would dispose of these bodies is he would, for lack of a better word, he would liquefy the remains of the bodies in vats of chemical substance.
The liquid gradually wore away their bodies, and they met a very slow, tragic end. The agony they endured is unbelievable, and it's hard to imagine how anyone in their right mind could enjoy doing something to innocent people. Some of these people were also put inside incinerators or large boilers while they were still breathing, claimed Professor George Grayson.
They also prepared guisos. These are stews where you take a member of the family and you put them in a pig boiler and you put gasoline on them and then you set a match to them.
In 2011, when the authorities raided one of the 12 kitchens used by Los Zetas to torture and even cook the victims, they found a distressing image inside. The red, stained walls of the one-storied La Gallera ranch had the horrors of brutality imprinted on them, creating a disturbing picture for anyone who dared to enter its premises. Outside the building stood an outdoor brick oven, although it's traditionally used to make a corn dish called zacahuil. Los Zetas members had a different plan in mind for the equipment. After inflicting immense pain on their victims, the members of the cartel would use fire to get rid of the remains, so there's no trace. Forensic officials went into the house of death wearing protective suits and face masks to avoid the disgusting stench of rotten human remains. They found piles of ash in the incinerator, along with bones, nails, and teeth buried in it. The words to zacahuil now have a whole new meaning for the locals. In another report, it was found that a former Los Zetas leader, Heriberto Lazacano, used to put his victims' flesh in his tamales and eat it. The cartel is also reported to have taken the life of a 6-year-old girl in front of her parents as a torture method. Los Zetas are also infamous for randomly kidnapping migrants who were just passing through Mexico to reach the U.S. They're taken into one of the secret hideouts and used to collect ransom from their families or relatives in the U.S. They go through immense pain and suffering before the money arrives. In 2011, Los Zetas kidnapped 139 migrants and took them to their ranch in San Fernando where they tortured and took their lives. They had reportedly suspected them to be future recruits of the Gulf Cartel, which prompted them to take such brutal action. However, it was later revealed that the migrants were not related to the cartel in any way and were just passing through Mexico to reach the U.S. border. Earlier in 2010, cartel members kidnapped 72 migrants, took them to a ranch, and asked them to give money. All of them ended up as lifeless bodies after enduring the cartel members' brutalities. A 19-year-old feigned death and escaped the ranch. Then he pointed law enforcement in their direction. A Honduran citizen named Cesar wanted to avoid this misfortune and enter the USA in hopes of making good money. As he was passing through Mexico with the help of a smuggler, he was kidnapped at Reynosa, Tamaulipas, by the Los Zetas cartel. Cesar, along with 20 other immigrants, were held in a safe house by the cartel members for 3 weeks and were harmed in various manners to get ransom from the family members. Cesar was certain he would lose his life and later said, "I thought, day after day, moment after moment, since I arrived, that the Zetas were going to kill me because they have no heart or soul." For 3 weeks, he was taken through immense pain and was made to send his brother many reminders of sending the ransom money. They even separated the children from the mothers and took them for interrogation, which stressed the parents out and made them feel helpless beyond measure. The children would give them information out of fear, and if they didn't match the information their parents gave the cartels, the men and women would suffer for lying to them. One night, Cesar found the perfect opportunity to run away through a window when the lights of the ranch were turned off. He lives on to tell the tales of the brutal acts of Los Zetas. He is one of the few fortunates who could run away, but many other kidnapped migrants have had to pay thousands of dollars in ransom before they are freed. The cartels would record horrific videos of the kidnapped migrants, tied up and helpless, then send them to their family members. They were terrified of losing their loved ones, and they didn't have any option but to send the cartel whatever amount they asked for in ransom.
Videos like these leaving some family members with no choice but to pay thousands of dollars for their loved one's safety.
In 2009, Mexican authorities requested the Law Enforcement and Border Liaison Team of the U.S.-Mexico border to investigate the cases of hundreds of missing people in the border area. They formed a team with the FBI forensic investigators and found barrels that led to Santiago Mesa Lopez, the stew maker of the Tijuana cartel.
Obviously, our initial objective, we don't know what we're looking at. We've never seen anything of this magnitude in the States or anywhere else, so we don't know what to expect.
The team uncovered 4 barrels buried in the ground, which contained solid and semi-solid substances with a high pH level, and some pillows, blankets, and long human bones.
Each barrel is handled with immense caution.
Como en colchón abajo. Sí. Esa masa que sí está hasta abajo. Uno 28. Okay, is it safe? Okay.
Not only this, they also found similar plastic barrels strewn across the city that had human remains in the form of stew, with chilling messages taped on the outside of the plastic barrels.
Some similar barrels that they discovered in other parts of the city. These are other barrels, but these actually have a message on them saying, this is what will happen to the engineer and all of those who are with him. We're gonna make them into stew.
The act, as mentioned, was likely undertaken by a different cartel, but it's pretty evident where they learned the technique from. Members of Los Zetas don't have a conscience, and as it appeared, they wanted to get their message across in any way possible, even through such heinous and gruesome methods. So what are officials doing in this regard? Have they made any advancement to prevent these incidents? In 2022, forensic officials dug up a piece of land on the outskirts of Nuevo Laredo that is used by cartels as an extermination site. They found piles of bones and body parts hidden inside the earth. The officials involved in this case said that these cases are always piling up and they cannot see an end to it. Around 100,000 people are reported missing, and their families worry that they've already been killed by the cartels. Students, local workers, and migrants are disappearing regularly, and their family members have been forced to go to the streets, seeking answers. The locals have forced the authorities to search the La Galera Ranch 4 times since 2017, and each time they have uncovered new remains, bones and skulls of adults and children alike, torn clothing, nails, teeth. Some were charred, and some intact. The government has had intel about the Poza Rica kitchens from as early as 2011, but no actions were taken against the brutalities. The involvement of several corrupt police officers was also uncovered, which the higher authorities gently ignored. A Solidarity volunteer has pointed the finger at the government for the mass murders, saying practically the whole country is a mass grave. The whole world needs to know that people were dissolved in acid in Mexico because the government allowed it to happen. When a body is found in a mass grave, families expect to get a glimpse of their loved ones for a last time or arrange a funeral with the remains. But when methods such as dissolving with acid and burning are involved, there is little to no hope of finding the remains. Whatever is salvaged is a heap of bone fragments and mass, and no one knows how many people it belongs to. The families of the victims are equally exhausted and are asking authorities to step up and stop the crimes, but their cries are repeatedly being ignored. The reason? No one knows. Is there anyone who can put a stop to their brutality? How many people will have to die before the government finally wakes up and puts a stop to this? Will the tales of brutality ever cease to exist in Mexico? The terrified locals can only hope and pray that their beloved family members are not the next in line. What is the best story you've heard about the torture kitchens of Los Zetas? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video to show your support. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell to get notified of future uploads. See you soon with the next exciting story.